There's a moment when a motorcycle just flows. The steering is effortless and the front end inspires confidence. The whole thing feels planted and alive, like it wants to go where you're pointing it. That feeling is not an accident. An engineer created it with geometry, with all the angles that defines how the bike steers and behaves, the weight distribution, every kilogram sits where it creates balance and feels natural, and the suspension, the system that connects all this brilliance to reality, the uneven surface that you're riding on. But there's only one thing that keeps the engineer from perfecting their creation, and that, my friend, is you. Any changes to the weight and its distribution on the bike will dramatically change the handling and the geometry of the bike, which is the difference between fighting your bike like a rodeo horse or that blissful feeling of control that I spoke of. So the engineer has to imagine an average Joe rider with average riding style and everything, and that's how they deliver it to the showroom floor where you buy the bike. So it's basically a bike dressed up for a mannequin doll. And when you buy it, you have to finish the last part of the job that the engineer couldn't. So take my T7 as an example. This is the first version that came out, 2019, fantastic bike, great reviews, but everyone sort of knew that the suspension was not really up to par if you wanted to push it a little bit. So friends of mine, they sorted that out by getting the expensive stuff. They swapped it for Öhlins suspension or Rally Raid products and stuff like that. And yeah, that's 3,000 or 4,000 euros, which still is not really tuned for you yet. That needs to be done anyway. So, but I thought and heard that the hardware here, this suspension, is actually not that bad. It has the potential still to cover all my needs as an intermediate rider. So I took off the forks and shocks and just sent it to my suspension workshop, the experts in this area, and they look at everything internal, the hardware stuff, the valves, the springs, and also oil and viscosity and so on, but mainly actually also the holistic job that suspension has to do with balancing the whole bike and so on. So it's not just get the new spring in the rear and it's sorted, because they work together, right? And that transformed this T7 from being slightly nervous and not so confident to train on rails. It's a completely different feeling riding this bike, and I enjoy it more by being more confident and I feel planted. So that is a much cheaper and more sensible approach in my opinion, because you probably already have the hardware with a potential that is way over your capability anyway. So make the best of what you have. So now we're doing the same thing to the AJP, and I'll just show you the process, how it works. It's very easy. AJP has fantastic suspension, the SAX suspension, closed cartridge, advanced stuff, but it's just set up too soft for a guy like me. I'm 88, 89 kilos, 180 tall, and I ride without luggage, but also with full camping luggage on there, usually about 18 kilos, plus a backpack, perhaps a water, yeah, so it's a lot more weight, and it just sags too much, more than the preload can handle on this bike, and yeah, it's just not for me yet. So I'll show you the process. Let's get this suspension sorted for me. So it all starts by the computer. I head over to RG3 Suspension on the website. Those are the guys that did my T7. They're doing my AJP. So basically what I do is I go into the site, I book a rebuild, which is a form where I explain what I want to do and my length and weight and riding style and everything. You can do that, or if that's complicated, as I did, I just called them, had a talk about my bike, and after that, when we decided on what to do, I book a shipping label. So, which is a form just so they get my address, and I can choose to borrow a case. So I sent this form, I'm waiting for a case to arrive.
One nap later.
Oj, 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 se det. Open, tack. That's a big box right there. So here it is, the borrow case. I look like a hitman now. I had some suspicious looks on me when I went here, but so this is the place for my suspension, and here's a return label. So the job is get my shock and 2 forks in here, put the label on the case and ship it off.
It was a hot summer's night.
Pork on these.
Lord, we couldn't close
And
our eyes.
here it comes. It's the first.
It was a hot summer night.
Put them like this. And now for the shock. It's quite easy on the T7, but here I need to remove a bit more.
An old woman's shout gave us a fright. She said Willie didn't come back home last night. No.
Yep, some Gotland.
No.
There we go. Right. Okay, so what a shock it was. It's a little bit of work of the AJP to get it out, not that bad, but here it is. As you can see, the preload adjuster up here is enduro style, and I don't think that really works for me, so I will add a remote preload adjuster. So I'll have RG3 put that on there for me. So let's get it in the box, let's ship it and just wait.
That night, it all went wrong.
How nice, looks like a weapon.
Yeah. Let me tell you, Willie was a good boy. He was a constant source of joy. Yes, he was.
Du bara ser när du blir trött. And now we just wait. A day later, RG3 received my suspension and started working on it. The work they do is to make all the internal parts of the suspension tuned for one job only. That's to give the intended rider the best ride it can deliver. And that means changing springs, shims, oil, and some secret sauce I was not allowed to see. Then balance the front and rear to work together. And of course, the stickers. Then they wrap everything and send it back to me. Here it is. Let's see what's in here. Yay, look at that. All right, look at this. And here we have the X-Trig, the remote for the preload. A nice little cap. My size. It's adjustable, but it's exactly my size, and I guess now the suspension is too. So let's get the suspension back on the bike and let's go for that test ride. I'm so curious. Lights on. Okay, let's get this thing in here. And now the top bolt. Let's close the door. All right, fork time. And flush with the triple clamp up there. So with the rebuild, my normal settings for the old suspension or setup does not work anymore. So with this rebuild, I have a fact sheet now, which says forks, shocks, standard, hard pack and sand. I have different clicks that they sort of recommend. I can play with it myself, but it's sort of a cheat sheet for that. And I have the sag settings and stuff like that. Let's pump up the brakes and let it settle before I tighten stuff. Wow, I'm so curious. Just Ooh. It's a bit taller, I think, a little bit, because it's carrying my weight a bit more. There. It doesn't sag as much when I sit on it. And now I have this preload here, which I can much easier access like this. Okay, first I just need to check the sag of the bike. Gonna measure. It's easier with some help, but first I'm going to measure from the axle up to a point here and see the full travel. And the way I do it is just above the axle I put a little, why not, yeah, just put it here. I have this little plug that I just stick into the axle hole there, and I have 2 tapes on here. So this is, let's pinch it there. So, and the sag should be 102 millimeters. So there it is, 102. It should sag when I sit on it there. So now when I sit on it, it should go down 102 millimeters. But let's sit on it. And now see, it's sagging, if let's say 5 millimeters more. So let's add some preload. There we are. I will bring my sag tools because I didn't measure the sag with all of this. So I will adjust on the road. No DB killer. I have to drive carefully now actually, because I have the enduro tires on with mousse in the front. They are really soft. So, entering my new little playground. My friend who lives here, he is also an adventure rider. So, and he has all this land and allowed me to play here, or us. And I made a little track. This place is gonna be so much fun. We'll make some obstacles and tracks in the little among the trees. So yeah. It's definitely more direct. I can feel, because I'm used to it before, that it was sagging a bit more and plusher, so now it's a bit more stable. Still a lot of tuning to do to get it perfect, but let's have some fun. I love this playground, gonna be fantastic. So, suspension definitely differ much more tolerable to my weight. I even added a bit too much preload now I think, but I'll go out, try and feel and see, but now the actual hardware is, yeah, for me. So, before you start browsing for new expensive suspension, make the most of what you've got. So, and if you want to dig deeper into suspension, how it works and so on, to get an understanding, I have a video for you, the suspension explanation, how it all works for normal people. All right, thanks for watching. Bye bye.